booked the place because of the reviews. 4.9 stars, dozens of them. Clean, quiet, great location. A little house about 20 minutes outside the city, surrounded by trees. The kind of place that looks almost too perfect in the photos. Hardwood floors, good lighting, a wraparound porch. It had everything I needed for a long weekend by myself to just decompress and get away from things for a while. I didn't read every review before I booked. I skimmed the top ones, saw nothing alarming, and confirmed the reservation. That was my first mistake. I arrived on a Friday evening, just before dark. The lockbox worked fine, the place was clean, and it smelled like whoever cleaned it had just left. Everything was exactly as advertised. I put my bag down, made something to eat, and spent the first few hours just unwinding. The only thing I noticed early on was the smoke detector in the bedroom. It wasn't something I would have thought twice about normally, but it was plugged into the wall with a USB cord, and I remember thinking that was a little odd. Most smoke detectors are hardwired or battery-powered. I figured maybe it was a combo device, carbon monoxide too maybe, and I let it go. I went to bed around 11 and slept fine. The next morning was when things started feeling different. I don't know what made me do it. I wasn't looking for anything. I was just sitting in the bedroom after waking up, drinking coffee, and I kept glancing at that smoke detector. Something about it kept pulling my attention back. I got up and looked at it closer. It was mounted high on the wall, angled slightly downward, pointed right at the bed. I told myself I was being paranoid. I went out for most of the day, came back that evening and pushed it out of my mind. But I couldn't sleep that night. Not well anyway. I kept waking up with this vague, uncomfortable feeling. Not fear exactly, more like the feeling you get when something is off and you can't put your finger on what it is. By about 2 a.m., I gave up on sleeping, sat at the kitchen table, and for some reason, opened the listing on my phone. That's when I actually read the reviews. Most of them were fine, normal. But as I scrolled back further, past the recent ones, I found something that stopped me. A review from about 8 months before mine. The guest had left 4 stars instead of 5, which stood out on an otherwise perfect listing. Her written comment was short. She said the place was lovely, great location, very clean, but that she had a strange experience she couldn't explain. She said she kept waking up in the night with an uneasy feeling like she was being watched. She wrote it off as the unfamiliar surroundings and said she'd probably book again anyway. I kept scrolling. About 14 months before that, another guest had left a similar review. Same score, 4 stars. The note was even shorter. She just said that something about the bedroom made her uncomfortable and that she struggled to sleep the whole stay. She didn't explain further. And then, about 6 months before that one, a third guest. This one had left 5 stars but buried a single line in the written review toward the end. Something about how she noticed a device near the bed she didn't recognize and asked the host about it. She said the host told her it was a security monitor for the property, and she accepted that answer. 3 guests, spread across nearly 2 years, all reporting the same thing. That bedroom, that uneasy feeling, that device they couldn't quite explain. And all of them had basically talked themselves out of it. I sat very still at that kitchen table for a long moment. I went back into the bedroom and looked at that smoke detector again. This time I took it down. On the back of it, there was a small slot, an SD card slot, and next to that a USB port and a tiny switch I hadn't noticed before. I turned it over in my hands. I looked it up on my phone, the exact model number printed on the back. The first result that came up described it as a hidden nanny cam. I want to be clear about something. I don't know for certain what it was doing there or whether it was actually recording. It's possible the host had some other explanation. It's possible the SD card was empty. There are a lot of things I can't prove from where I was standing at 2:30 in the morning in a house in the middle of nowhere. What I do know is that I packed my bag in about 6 minutes and drove home in the dark. I reported it to Airbnb the next morning with photos. They responded within the day and confirmed they were investigating the listing and had suspended the host. I got a full refund. I also went back and looked at those 3 reviews, again the ones I'd found the night before. All of them were still there, sitting in plain sight, below dozens of glowing 5-star write-ups. Hidden in the open, you could say. What bothers me most isn't the device itself, or even what may or may not have been on it. It's that 3 people before me had flagged something. 3 people sat in that same house, in that same bedroom, and felt something was wrong. And every single one of them talked themselves out of it, left a politely worded review, and moved on. I almost did the same thing. The rational explanation is that it was a nanny cam a host had no business installing in a guest bedroom. The less rational part of my brain still thinks about those 3 reviews at 2 a.m. sometimes. And the fact that whoever put that thing there had been getting away with it long enough to collect all those 5-star ratings above it. I don't use Airbnb the same way I used to. I still use it, but I read every single review now. Not the top ones, the old ones, the ones buried at the bottom where people politely mention the thing that made them uneasy and then add, but overall a lovely stay.